I can't imagine the intricacies of getting to where you are today. So if you could tell us about that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so I'm Seema Sheth. I'm the regional executive of the Louisville Branch of the St. Louis Federal Reserve, like the longest job title. But if you had asked me when I was, pick an age, are you going to be the regional head of the Fed someday? I would tell you, no. Well, what is that? Who does that work? So actually, I am a first-generation American. My parents are immigrants. My dad ethnically from India, but born in Sudan. My mom's Sudanese, and they immigrated to the States in '82. So I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, first-generation American, which made for kind of an interesting youth, because I didn't quite know how to navigate the spaces that I was often put in. Very third culture kid. Graduated from high school. For the first time, I was able to make decisions for myself. I went to undergrad, and I decided I was going to study theater. So my brown parents were like, "What do you mean you're going to study theater?"
I was a theater kid. I didn't do it in college. But
but then you can't be a doctor, lawyer, and engineer if you study theater. So what is your job going to be? The good news is I finished college in 2007, and I graduated a year early. So I finished in 2007.
Where'd you go?
William and Mary in Virginia. So I scooped my diploma in 2008. And you know what else happened in 2008? The market crash. So all my friends that had made good decisions also couldn't find a job. So we were kind of on a level playing field.
Yeah.
And I needed health insurance because I'm anaphylactically allergic to peanuts. So I got the only job that I could find that would give me health insurance. I started making coffee at a Starbucks in the Ballston Mall outside of DC. I got 20 hours a week. That's all you needed to get health insurance. So I had this shiny college degree, and I was part-time working, making coffee at a mall. Wasn't exactly what I pictured for myself. But I feel like that's an allegory for what I'm sure so many students have faced in the recent history, because COVID happens. You get a shiny degree and then it's COVID. What do you do? And I guess the only thing you can do is try and find something that interests you, try to make enough money to survive. So I worked for a documentary film company. I thought, that would be something that could be theater adjacent. I hated it. I was terrible at it. Props to you all for doing this sort of setup. I have ADD, and it was way too long of a time for me to be paying attention to the same thing. So I learned I wasn't great at that. I was really good at making coffee though. I was, and I became a shift supervisor. That got me 40 hours a week.
Let's go.
And then the manager quit. So I became the manager. That got me a manager salary of $22,000 a year, which was primo in DC, plenty of money. But I was good at it, and I flipped the store from being profit or loss to in the black, and kind of liked being in charge of a thing. That wasn't what I was going to do forever. So I'm now married. My then boyfriend, we're now married, got into law school in Boulder, Colorado. So it's I'm going to move to Boulder. Sounds good.
Cool.
It's nice. There's mountains. I don't know. I'd never been there. So I moved to Boulder. I was going to find any job. You know what job I could find?
Coffee?
Starbucks coffee shop. So I managed a store there. I had the same sort of experience. I did really well. Hated the cold. So after about a year.
Is it that cold out there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a desert person.
Was this better?
I'm from sub-Saharan Africa. So I can handle a little bit of cold. But my first summer there, winter there, I'm sorry, it snows a lot because, and the bigger issue isn't that it's cold, it's that everybody that lives in Colorado loves a snow sport.
Right.
I don't. So everybody disappears to the mountain for the entirety of the winter. Every weekend, it's what slopes are we going to hit? Let's go skiing. Let's go snowboarding. Let's go shoeing. I don't want to do any of that.
Right.
It's very lonely. This sucks. Also, it was a very demographically homogenous space. And again, I felt very fish out of water. Nobody here looks like me. I don't have any, nobody's interested in what I'm interested in. I don't want to run an Ironman. I'm not training for the Olympics. So it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
My husband was in law school. I never saw him because he was inside of a textbook 1,000% of the time. And it wasn't, I was a theater kid. It's I'm not going to ever get to do anything related to what I care about here. So maybe I'll move to a place that provides more of that. So it was New York or LA were your choices. And I was already frozen from within. So New York felt too cold. So I'll move to LA. Had I been there before? No. Did I know anybody? I knew one person. So I called her. We had done a theater show together back in Virginia at Virginia Shakespeare Festival. And I was hey, do you know anybody that needs a roommate? I need a roommate. Fine. So I moved to California, have a roommate. And I did, I was there for 8 years. I worked for Starbucks for that time. I flipped a number of stores for them. That became I would go to the store, you analyze the store, you fire everybody.
Flip it, meaning you turn it into a good business?
Yeah. So
a lot of them are not profitable?
Correct. Huh. Especially if you look at a city like LA. It's an expensive city, so the cost of real estate's high. So if you're going to have a Starbucks that's on the 3rd Street Promenade, that's, if you've been to LA, it's if you ever see any reality TV show in LA, they'll show you that beach front with the giant Ferris wheel. That's the Third Street Promenade. It's like half mall, half tourist attraction. It's expensive real estate. So you're gonna throw a coffee shop in there. It's gotta cook for it to stay open, and it wasn't. And so that was the first store actually that I did when I got down there. It had so many operational challenges. There are a lot of tourists that come that don't speak English. So then if you have an entirety of and this is like, I think the Starbucks now it's like 2 registers, 2 machines. This is like 7 registers, 5 machines. It's like big store. Anyway, so you have to start then hiring for the language needs that you have. Like, well, why don't we have somebody on staff that speaks Japanese if everybody that comes in here is from Japan? Like, why aren't we creating job aids for them? Or, which drinks are popular so that we would print them out and we would like have like flashcards, like you want this one? No, you want that one? No, so that we could get business moving and it would go faster and then the store could be profitable. I liked finding solutions like that.
Yeah.
At the same time, I wanted to be an actor. So I was trying to audition for stuff, but I had to work so much to pay the rent that like I was never able to be terminally available like you need to be to do that well. I did have a lot of success as a commercial print model. So I did like Nike, Reebok, Under Armour, I got to fly over the place, and I learned a lot about myself through that like it's cool, except for that it's not that cool. Like I learned that I like to be involved in like the creative process, but as, a no-name model in an Under Armour ad, they don't want your opinion about anything. They are going to tell you what to do, how to be, how to look. I didn't like that. I like to be part of the solutioning. So that wasn't for me. So at the end of this, I'm like late 20s. My resume reads coffee shops, model. Hire me to do anything else. Like impossible. So then my father-in-law is a business school professor. He was the dean of the business school at Virginia Tech. So he and I were talking and he was like, what you're doing is basically internal consulting work. You know that, right? I was like, no, I didn't know that. What is a consultant? Like, what is that job? What do they do? So he explained it to me, and I thought, maybe that's something I could do. But I had been out of academia for like a number of years. But I went to Barnes and Noble and got myself some GMAT books and like learned that. And in a 2-month period, I like decided to take the GMAT, studied for the GMAT, took the GMAT, did well enough on the GMAT, applied to school. So like, bam, let's go.
Wow.
I don't know, and got to grad school, learned a lot about a lot of things. The thing I was most interested in was personal finance. It was crazy to me that people would take on hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to go to school and then have like no idea how they were going to pay that back. It's incredible. I don't know. Have you ever I don't know if you've ever had that happen to you, but like.
I had to pay 15, maybe 20 after school.
Yeah.
But I knew I was going to get into sales.
See, you had a plan.
Yeah.
Most people don't have a plan. And through the entirety of my early 20s, like I was never flush with cash. Like I'm working retail job. I mean, Starbucks is a retail job. It's not even like a service job where you get like big tips. You're an hourly employee for the most part, living in a very expensive city. So I was like budget jujitsu. Like I had all the spreadsheets. I had to figure it out myself. I was very conscious that if I wanted to ever do anything in my life, I would have to have some sort of financial security. And it was wild to me that nobody else was thinking that way. So while I was in grad school, I decided I was like going to go all in on personal finance. I was going to figure out how to deliver that in some way. So I started a little company called the Adulting Academy that was like going to teach personal finance to young people. At the same time, I was like almost 30. It was time to start thinking about like, what do I want to be? What do I want to do? And I knew that I didn't want to stay in California. My husband and I were thinking about like maybe we'll have a family someday. So my family was all here in Kentucky. Well, let's just move back to Kentucky. Okay. I was like, I don't know. I left there for a reason. Is it going to be terrible when I come back? But it wasn't. We moved back in 2015. I had to network my butt off to get a first job because, again, my resume still, although had grad school on it, I didn't have a network here. I knew, again, like 3 people from when I lived here 15 years prior. But I made those phone calls, and I got a job selling insurance at Northwestern Mutual because that was the job I could get. Okay. This is new for me. I wanted to work in personal finance, and now I'm selling an insurance product that doesn't really feel totally aligned. But I figured out a way to make that practice into something that was what I wanted it to be. So my book of business was mainly young people doing a lot of cash flow management. Like I made it into things that was interesting to me, and I felt like I was delivering a lot of value. So I did that for 4 years. And sort of was trying to build a pathway for myself on how to do that while building my Adulting Academy. I sat on a bunch of boards at the time because it was good for, I don't know, like I wanted to be civically involved in actors theaters here in Louisville. And I was like, oh my God, a theater. I would love to sit on the theater board. I sat on a board with a woman who was like, helped me think about career differently. Instead of like, how much can I deliver today It was sort of more about being intentional and mapping a career moving forward. As you can tell by my career journey so far, it's very impulsive. It's like, what do I want to do? Okay, let's go do that. What am I going to do? Let me go do that.
Yeah.
Not really planned. And so she's like, think about what you want to be for the next 5 years. And her advice was, don't think of it in terms of the job you're going to get next. Think of it in terms of the skills you wish you had or the things you got to do every day that you're not getting to do now. So it was a different frame with which to look at career. It wasn't about how much money you're going to make, but rather like, what do you want your day-to-day to look like? So I sort of worked on that matrix for a while and had just sort of a set of things that I wanted to do.
Who was that gave that advice?
The person?
Yeah.
Jennifer Mackin. She
Okay.
ran the Oliver Group,
Okay, cool.
which was like an HR consultancy firm. After she tried to hire me to do that too. And I was like, I don't know, I don't want to do HR consultancy, but it was fascinating to get that sort of like reframe on what career could look like. So I made that matrix, and it turned out what I was doing didn't fall in line with what I wanted to be doing. Like, I didn't want to be working 90 hours a week, banging on the phone however many hours a day, calling people I didn't want to work in that style of sales. It didn't feel very, it wasn't aligned with who I wanted to be long-term, and it was a lot of work. At that point, I had had a kid, and sort of the way that I was raising my life was different. But heretofore, getting a job had been kind of difficult. I've always had to really like hustle for the jobs that I've gotten, so I was concerned. But I'd become very good at networking, and so when I started putting some feelers out, I got some offers from that. So the next jump I went was from Northwestern Mutual to PNC, and I worked in their private bank in their high net worth sort of pocket of their like trust services management division. That was fascinating to see how like really rich people manage their money.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I had a boss there. So first time I ever got to work for a woman was there. If you ever, I don't know, have a chance to work for a woman, you should do it.
My first job out of college was a woman. She busted my ass in many ways, and it was all great.
Yeah, I mean, it was similar to that. Like she had no time, didn't suffer a fool, and had no time. She wasn't going to make space for you to whine or complain.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, the level of the amount of things that she could get accomplished in a given day. Her name's Ann Georgette. The amount of things that she could get accomplished in a day still shocks me. Like, we would throw all of these trust issues, and she would like, I don't know what she would do overnight. She'd come in the morning like, here's all the solutions to all the things that you had an issue with. And I really admired that she was so capable. Anyway, so she and I would spend a lot of time talking about career. It was the first time I'd ever had a boss who wasn't concerned so much about what I was going to do for the company I was in now. She was very much curious about who I wanted to be someday. So we spent a lot of time in like dream space, there's a restaurant here called Mesh, and we're sitting on the patio, and she was just like, if you could do, if you could do anything, what would you do? Like, what are the skills that you hope to do you want to be like in politics? Do you want to like run a business? What do you want to do? And it's so odd that it takes somebody else sometimes giving you permission to think that big about what you could be. And so that was sort of elucidating to me. I want to have more of an impact. I was certainly having an impact on the clients that relied on us for services, but I didn't feel like I was having an impact on a macro level. It's like, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to wake up and be like, yeah, I did that, or changed something, or I helped in some way. So, I don't know, I was happy at PNC. Pandemic happened. That was wild. And then through like the whisper chain, the person who previously had this job, I learned that they were going to start their own consulting company. I was like, man, the Federal Reserve, what a cool place to work. But then I thought, the Federal Reserve is like marble, mahogany. I think maybe it's unfair. I think like old dudes in suits. Like, that's what I think the Fed is.
Yeah.
And I look at myself.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that you wanted an old dude in a suit.
In my 100% denim outfit, like, with my slick back, trying to be more like a Gen Zer. I just didn't see it for myself, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no way. How stupid, because cognitive bias exists everywhere. And if I can't even get out of my own way, if I can't even get the cognitive bias out of my own thought process, how do I expect anybody else to do that? That's not fair. So Jennifer, again, we were talking about this role, and she was like, what's the worst that happens if you apply? And I was like, I guess I'm embarrassed that I tried. And she's like, so, what if you get an interview and you get to have practice interviewing for an executive level role like that is for an institution that you think and you admire? It's like, yeah, what's the worst that happens? Also, I thought I had a snowball's chance in hell. So I spent like 5 seconds on my resume. I was like, whatever, they're not, I'm certainly not what they're looking for. But I'd also experienced in my career thus far being in organizations where I didn't feel like I belonged and trying to sort of like backbend into the version of professionalism that they want. when
It gives me PTSD.
I mean, like, I wore so many Navy suits because I thought, like, in order for you to trust me as a finance person, I have to be wearing a Navy suit. So in the interview for this job, I was the exact opposite. I was like, I'm going to show up like me. Like, and if you want it, this is what it is. But I'm not going to cosplay as something else. Then you hire me, and then I'm either trying to be that person, or even worse, I become myself, and you're disappointed in what that is. Anyway, so I had a lot of plans for how I thought somebody in this role could do it differently, better, talk to a different set of people, engage the next generation. And, you know, we're all constituents of the Fed. Like, you are impacted by the decisions that we make. So how can we do that well if we don't listen to you? And how can we do that well if you don't hear us when we talk to you? Because we're talking to you in a way you don't understand. That was my whole pitch for the job, and they were into it. They're like, yeah, you know, this is different. This is not what we're used to, but I think it could work. And so I've been here now for 4 years.
Wow.
The boss that hired me, her name is Kathy O'Neill. She left the bank 2 years after that to go run a credit union. But I give her a lot of credit too, because she was just like, do it. Like, yeah.
So is this the role that is like perfect for you? Like all those things that you talked about, like being in there?
Oh, I'm having a great time. I mean, as you may or may not know, the Fed has been in the news a lot the last 4 years since I've been here.
Yeah, with like rate things,
other things.
And so are you making decisions on that sort of stuff and like reporting it up to someone over on the Hill, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the way that rate decisions are made, it's by this committee called the Federal Open Market Committee, or the FOMC is what you'll hear. So the FOMC is made up of the 7 boards of governors members. So those are federally appointed positions. And then the presidents of all of the reserve banks. So there's 12 of those folks. And they serve on a rotation for when they vote or when they don't vote. But they get together every 6 weeks, and they have a debate about what rate should be, that party. And at the end of it, they take a vote, and that vote is what happens with rates. So it's a sort of democratic process in that everybody has sort of a say, and it's also an intentionally federated process. So like, there's somebody from San Francisco, and somebody from New York, and somebody from St. Louis, and somebody from Richmond, because we want to make sure that all of those different microeconomies are represented. So, you know, just because labor isn't an issue on the East Coast doesn't mean it's not a labor in the heartland. So we want to make sure like it's represented. So my job is to make sure that my president, who's the one that is on that committee, is well informed. So I brief him about what I find in the region.
And then
I don't make the decision myself.
Are you going around to business owners and different, like, just trying to organically find what the economy, like, information is telling you? Or
I'm more strategic than like an amoeba, just going around trying to like jump into stuff. But no, I look at you know, obviously my footprint is made up of mid-sized companies. There are a couple of very, very large companies, a number of mid-sized companies, and then the majority of employers in the country are actually small businesses. So it's my job to then have a profile of all of those things, and I gather anecdotal data from them on a sort of repeated basis. But the Fed has so many ways it gathers data. We also have a series of surveys that we'll put out. So I make sure that we have a good representation of folks taking the surveys. But that happens. We have a number of boards and councils that folks serve on. So again, I make sure that there are the right people on those boards, but there are also ways in which we sort of are consistently combing and gathering information.
Sure. Well, I want to steer the conversation into mentorship, because that's why we are here.
That was like long.
No, that's because the more juice, the better. It gives me things to aim the conversation into. I want to talk about mentorship. We're obviously here for mentorship.
Yeah.
On the 29th, hopefully you can make it and tell people your amazing, beautiful story you just told me.
Yes, very good.
But you had a number of situations, it sounded like, where you had mentors pouring into you, and maybe pivotal moments in your career that could or could not depend on the advice that people were giving you. Can you tell us about some of those most important pieces of advice that you received?
I mean, I've gotten a lot of good advice. I've gotten some bad advice too. So part of it is like, just because somebody is older than you and they tell you to do something doesn't necessarily mean it's great for you. The biggest challenge I've had in mentorship is, I think, part of what feels like the social bond in a mentorship is that you and your mentor, like, they haven't lived experience that then you can learn something from. And so it's been a little challenging, because I'm a diverse person in a very, like, not that diverse a city. And so it's hard to find a mentor that like has my lived experience, because it's kind of weird to me. I mean, how many first generation Sudanese Americans have you run into?
Just one
so
far.
The one so far. It's me. So like, you know, there's that, right? But I have found that there are more commonalities than I thought there would be. So I discounted a lot of people and discounted their ability to give me advice, because I felt like our lived experiences were so different. How could you know how to help me do what I'm trying to do? Like, I lived in that space for I think, a little bit too long. When I opened myself up to the possibility that, and maybe like lost some of that youthful self-assurance that I knew so much, what I learned is that people are really willing to help think through a problem from a different frame. So if you're vulnerable enough to tell them like, hey, this is the thing that I'm dealing with, or this is what I don't know, they're willing to really like work through that with you. And that has been really elucidating to me to help me find solutions for myself. So the idea that a mentor is going to be like, here's the pathway to your career, and you're going to do these 3 things, and I'm going to make this introduction for you, and then you're going to be like that. I don't know that that's real. I thought it was. I don't know that that's real. But to sit down with somebody who you trust, who's perhaps experienced more of all of the swirl of career and business, and to say like, hey, here's the situation that I'm dealing with, or here's the dynamic that I'm dealing with. If you were me, what would you do?
Yeah.
That's been really helpful, like
Totally.
framing the conversation. I didn't know that that's how I should be navigating those
Sure.
relationships. So it took me a minute to get there.
Yeah. What's the best advice you have for someone who is on a similar path as you, or right now
taking this crazy ass path?
Well, that's what I was going to say. So
yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that are doing maybe things that they didn't think that they'd be doing after getting a degree.
Yeah.
And they need advice and they need hope.
Yeah.
To know that there is grass on the other side. There is grass that's greener on the other side. I mean, who would have thought that someone who's Starbucksing across the United States was going to be the regional like chair? Is that the word for it?
Regional executive.
Regional executive. Of the Fed.
So I'd say this. I think I have 2 pieces of advice. The first is everything is going to make more sense to you in your rear view mirror than it is out of your windshield. So don't worry so much about the through line this way. Worry that you can tell a through line that way. So if you look at my career, it makes no sense. I'm a theater major that worked in retail coffee shops and modeled for a decade, and then worked in financial services and now works at the Fed. That makes no sense. It doesn't. But then if you look at the through line of what like the skills that I have or what my interests were through that, it does kind of make sense. Like wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Then I started working in a business for the first time, and I got really interested in business management, P&L management, and that got me interested in business as at a macro level. But then I really wasn't professionalized enough to do that and converse about it in the language that people who are involved with business understand. So then I went to school and got professionalized. And after that, I thought finance was really interesting. So I moved into a finance space. So from business to finance, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. When I was working, and it's also people skills. So when you work at a coffee shop, it's so much as customer service, people skills. I learned how you can be so mad at me and you're going to leave. And you're not going to be mad at me anymore. I'm going to fix it. Yeah. That's all customer service. So when I worked in these financial services jobs, it was just customer service work with more money and fancier people, but the same thing, right? So that's the through line. And I also the whole time really loved thinking about business problems on a macro level. I've always been really curious about what makes economies work. You know, coffee shops are a tiny economy, and then cities are a bigger economy, and then the country's a bigger economy. So then when I got this job at the Fed, it's the same thing. I still have customers. I still am curious about the economy. I'm still trying to figure out how all those pieces work together. So in the rearview mirror, to me, makes a ton of sense. In the windshield, no idea. Yeah. So as long as you can tell the story, that's more important than the story making sense to other people, because they're going to ask you to explain how it all fits together.
Totally.
I'd also say I use my theater skills more often in my job now than I use my finance skills, because I talk about the Fed. I have to explain really complex, sometimes confusing topics around economics and monetary policy to people who are not so interested. I have to listen and understand and engage with folks so that I can parse out the information that's critical for monetary policy. That's yes and that's improv. So it's all connected.
Yeah.
But as long as you can make the connection for yourself.
Yeah. You know? I can always tell if someone is a theater person based on the way they talk and the way they use their hands.
Oh yeah.
If you wouldn't have told me that, I probably would have asked you at the end of the conversation. Yeah. One of the things I love to ask people who have had interesting careers and done some cool things is the biggest challenge that they've been through. Is maybe a story, maybe a situation, something that you went through, and on the other side was great opportunity.
The biggest career challenge I've ever had, and it was, I got myself I was working in a job where, and this was sort of like in the burgeoning time of people trying to figure out how to work collaboratively with people that are different from them and all this. But I got myself in a job in a position where I had cosplayed too hard. As we talked, I cosplayed as somebody I wasn't way too hard. And so the amount of mental energy I spent every day making sure that I was like remaining this version of myself that I felt like was palatable to everybody else was consuming so much mental space that I wasn't able to do my job well. Like before I sent the email, I would be like, let me read this email for tone. Let me read this email for how it's going to be received, given who they think like, it was so much work. And it was crushing. I would come home every day. My poor husband was like, just quit. I'm like, I can't, I'm in too deep and I want to do this thing. And also like, I don't know that if I'm not that person, if I'm going to be able to be successful in the way that I've been so far. Like I felt very trapped in this version of professionalism that I built for myself. It's the monster. I made her. Like, it's my Frankenstein. Okay. And so divorcing myself from that was really, really, really hard. It made me feel like such an imposter. And we talk about imposter syndrome and all this, but it wasn't just that it was like esoteric and perhaps it was, no, I literally built a version of myself that didn't exist and people really liked it. Then what do you do?
Yeah.
Crisis moment. And so that's when I sort of got really intentional about being as radically myself as I could be in the spaces that I had. And if the space kicked me out, then the space kicked me out and that wasn't the space for me. That was very difficult for me to deal with because there were spaces that definitely kicked me out and I did not know how to not take that personally. Mm-hmm. The gift of time in hindsight now in my rearview mirror, I don't feel as personally affronted by all that. I realize that maybe there was some work that other people needed to do and that the onus of all that shouldn't have been on me.
Sure.
But at the time it was certainly very devastating. I felt my entire life like I'm like behind, like, oh my God, better speed up. It's like better speed. Maybe not you because you did something when you were young, but I'm already behind. Like, let's get going. That's so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, be where your feet are. You're not behind. You have so much time.
Yeah.
So many of like my favorite authors, people that I really admire, didn't do the thing that they were doing until they were 50. So why do I feel behind at 40?
Yeah. Yeah, living an entire life like that is not a good thing. I'm trying to figure out how to do that better.
It's so hard because the world is geared to make you feel like we elevate youth success because it's cool, right? Like, I mean, when you've got like a 40 under 40 award or whatever, you're like, you feel so cool, like I'm whatever. But who gives, like, great, 40 under 40, that's great. But also like that you succeeded at I have a friend who went back to med school after having 2 kids. Like, she deserves an award. Are you kidding me? Yeah. She decided to take on med school as a mother of 2 in her 30s.
How old was she?
She was, I think, 31 when she went back to med school. Like, that's insane to me. She's in a neurosurgery residency. So she's a freaking brain surgeon. And she did all that after she was 30 something with 2 kids, because she was a nurse before that and then went to, anyway. So like you're not behind, you've got time, you can try stuff and fail at stuff. And, that's why I care so much about financial literacy, because as long as you don't make some stupid decisions that trap you, you got space and time to like juke and jive and figure out what makes sense for you. I wish somebody had told me that because I wasted a whole decade feeling like I wasn't good enough and I was behind and I should be doing, I should be successful already. Or whatever.
Yeah. I think entrepreneurs, a lot of them like entrepreneur their life away.
Yeah. Chasing
the dragon of like, oh, I got to get that next dopamine hit of a deal or whatever.
So then I have that. And then I am like working with I'm writing a book. So all these things. And the challenge is like, when you take on that many things, then there's no time to like, my friends are like, let's join a book club. And I'm like, I don't have time to read. Yeah. Oh, let's run a marathon. I'm like, I don't have time to run. Like, I don't have time to do anything. I'm always committed to doing something. Yeah. So that's my challenge. Yeah. Well,
thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
We've had Seema, just a lovely interview.